Good afternoon, Mount Hermon Church family. I hope this video finds you doing well, and I hope you've been having a great week. It's another week and another time for us to meet together in the form of this devotional. And so I just want to encourage you today. And I'm going to start a little series here in our devotionals. Every week, I'm always trying to think about what I need to say and what would be a blessing to you. And I'm going to start a series here over the next couple weeks, just things that I've learned through this pandemic and things that I've learned in my own life. And I think things that will help you and just take it and biblically help encourage us from things that I've seen and things that I've learned. And so the first thing I want to share in this series of things that I've learned from the pandemic is that believers should have the priority to speak the truth in love. Ephesians 4:15, Paul says this, "Rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ." Paul has just been speaking about how the church is to come along and equip believers, equip them in their gifting, and he goes on to say to be careful, because as we are equipped in our gifting, we got to make sure as we become spiritually mature that we're not drawn away by all kinds of cunning devices and false doctrine. But then this verse comes, "Rather speak the truth in love." Isn't it interesting that he's talking about what it is to be a mature believer, and one of the first things he mentioned is that you should speak the truth in love. And one of the things I've learned as I've heard people speaking about COVID-19 and in the middle of this pandemic, or I've read blogs or seen what people have posted or tweeted. And folks, I am concerned about the way that we speak as believers. And so my question for us today, and one thing that I've learned, is that we need to be speaking the truth and we need to speak it in love. I want to break that into two easy parts there. One, are we speaking the truth? Now, let me clarify. I'm not here to discuss what you believe about the pandemic. There are people all over the map on both sides of the fence on what is going on and how we should respond to it. But here's my question for you. When you post something online or when you speak to somebody about what you believe in the pandemic, are you proclaiming it as true? Because I think we've all seen through this pandemic, it's been amazing. And in fact, I've seen a number of just kind of parody videos talking about the fact that one day, in fact, as I did some research, March 29th, we had from our government, man, you don't need to wear masks. Masks will not help you. In fact, they could actually hurt you and keep the virus, you breathing those germs over and over again. And so don't wear masks. It was just April 2nd, a few days later, that they're saying, well, now it looks like it's going to be good for you to wear a mask. Now, whether you wear a mask or not is not up to me to say. Thankfully, we live in a free country and you can make that decision for yourself. But my question, as I read this, it was interesting to me on March 29th, how people were talking about, man, you should never wear a mask, never wear a mask. And then also on April 2nd, I saw people posting things about, man, if you don't want to wear a mask, you're going to die. Well, folks, that's just not true. Are there advantages of it? Sure. And you can make that decision for yourself. But my question to us, if you are a follower of Christ, is what I am speaking true? And folks, as a follower of Christ, we know that whether we follow a politician, whether we are reading a newspaper or watching the news, the fact of the matter is what we have that we know is truth is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that is what gives us hope. He even says it here, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ. Why? Because when we are speaking the words of Christ, when we are sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ, we know it is true. And so I want to encourage you. Folks, you can share your opinion. You can share your belief system on what is going on with COVID-19. But when you do that, I want us to help recognize the fact that whether it's our opinion or whether it's our belief doesn't mean that it's necessarily true. Things could change tomorrow. And how many of us have said things that we may believed about this virus 2 months ago, I mean, at this point, I really thought we would be back at church, and I longed for that day. But the fact of the matter is, we need to be careful. Because when we're speaking to neighbors, when we're speaking to friends, when we're speaking to coworkers, they need to know what is coming out of our mouth is going to be true or stated in a way that they know this is our opinion. So I would encourage you, make sure what you are saying is true. There's plenty of falsehoods out there. There's plenty of lies and manipulation out there. What needs to be coming out of the mouth of a believer is what is true. Secondly, am I speaking the words in love? Jesus said the second greatest commandment is what? Love your neighbor as yourself. And so when we speak, even if we believe what we're saying to be true, even if it's our opinion, even if that's what we practice, my question is, are you saying this in a way that is loving? I have seen people that call themselves believers, whether talking about people that are going to the malls that have just opened, or they're going to protest, which is a right we have as Americans. And they're going to protest. I've seen people that call themselves believers say, well, good, maybe they'll just get it and die. Folks, how in the world is that ever loving? Whether you believe they should be out there or not, to speak that is not loving our neighbor. And then we are going to wonder why people won't listen to us share the gospel. I would just encourage us, as it says here, that when we begin to speak to somebody that has an opposing view, that thinks differently, and praise God, we live in a country where we can have opposing views and we can think differently than each other. That we begin to ask ourselves, not only is what we believe true, but is it loving? Paul had a lot of experience, didn't he? Here's the Apostle Paul who stood before people preaching the gospel that could get him. It got him stoned. It got him thrown in prison. There was a lot of conflict there. Paul's saying, you know what? Spiritual maturity is evidence in that we are speaking to people that we may disagree with, but we're doing it in love. I would just encourage you, before you go saying things to people, whether it's about the COVID-19 or anything else, really. One, is it true? And two, is it loving? I asked myself this question before responding to people. If I disagreed with that person, and the way that I'm about to answer them, if they were to respond that way to me, how would I take this answer? Would I say, man, we disagree, but at least we're having a friendly debate. We can discuss this and we can talk about it and we're sharpening one another. Or in the way that I'm about to respond, if they responded that way to me, would my guard go up? And would I think that they are angry or upset or arrogant? Folks, when we respond, people should see our response and think, man, I may not agree with them, but at least they were loving and respectful in the way they spoke. Folks, Paul says here, this is a matter as we grow in our spiritual maturity and our walk with Christ, that we speak the truth in love. And so I want to encourage you, in your discussions, whether it's about this pandemic or others, let us be careful that what we say is true, or we very clearly state, this is my opinion. But even then, that we do it in love. I close with this verse. That's a prayer that I believe each one of us could pray. I know I need to pray it often. The psalmist writes in Psalm 141:3, set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. May God protect our lips and put a guard over our mouth so that what we say and what we do is speaking the truth in love. God bless you. And may we use this time to share the truth, the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ in love with those that need it most. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you back here again next week for a devotional as we continue this series on things that I've learned through this pandemic.